Senate confirms Tinubu's ministerial nominees Balarabe, Abbas Balarabe, Jamila Ibrahim, and Olawale Olawande. We're not distracted by certificate saga. We don't have time for frivolous issues. No, not my words, but those are the words of Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister, Yusuf. Ondo Assembly asks Chief Justice Olusegun Odushola to constitute impeachment panel on Deputy Governor Lucky Ayedatiwa. Let's check out stories from outside Nigeria. Kenyan opposition lawmakers seek approval for Haiti peacekeeping mission by Parliament. And Zambian opposition unites against the country's President Hakainde Hichilema. Kofi Bartels, this is Politics HQ. You're welcome. The Nigerian Senate has confirmed Abbas Balarabe, the Kaduna State Ministerial nominee, along with two other nominees for the position of ministers, but his appearance at the Senate today wasn't without incident as he fainted during his screening. Sadly so. This incident has sparked debates about the vetting process, health protocols, and the Senate's efficient handling in such situations. Additionally, there are growing concerns over the use of security reports in the confirmation process, with allegations of political intrigue and questionable appointments, including individuals under EFCC investigation. Tonight, we delve into the implications of these events, the impact on public trust, and the need for reforms in the Nigerian Senate and its ministerial confirmation process. Glad to say we have joining us to analyze this issue Baba Yusuf is a policy strategist and the Group Chief Executive Officer at Global Investment and Trade Company. He joins us via video link from Abuja. Here in the studio, we're joined by Segun Sopitan. He is a public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'll start with you, Segun. The Senate's confirmation today of Abbas Balarabe as ministerial nominee. The president just recently forwarded his name to the Senate. This confirmation took place despite his fainting during the screening process. And this raised questions about health of those who are nominated as it concerns, the vetting of ministerial nominees. Of course, before you go for screening, it's part of the whole vetting process. What are your thoughts on this incident that happened today and its implications for the Senate's role in confirming nominees, in something we need to take more seriously?
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate, but I guess it's a human thing. We're all human beings and we're 1 second away from some incident or the other. Life is very frail. So I wouldn't want to read too much into that particular incident. Maybe it would suggest that the man may not be particularly attentive to his physical conditioning. I understand, according to some of the stuff that I read, online, that he probably had been fasting for a couple of days, something like that. Not good enough an excuse. If you are coming for such a public engagement, you obviously should have checked yourself to be sure that you are in top condition. You are facing Nigeria, not just the Senate, So one would have expected that he would have been better prepared. But it's not, for me, it's not a deal breaker as long as it's not evidence of more serious underlying health issues. The Senate, so I would expect that the Senate would have gone ahead after that incident to confirm his health condition, probably, just probe a little deeper to ensure that he's fit for the office that he's taken. Beyond that, I wouldn't read too much into this.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Abba Yusuf, thank you so much for your time. He says he wouldn't read too much into this, but some would say that, yes, indeed, it could be isolated. But he's also stressed the importance of a healthy minister. I want your take on this. How is it important for ministerial nominees to undergo thorough health screening before confirmation? Politics is important, but life is more important. And should there be a stricter health requirement, for nominees to the position of minister to ensure their fitness for public office? Because even ordinary workers, sometimes you have to go for a thorough health check before they can employ you.
Thank you for having me. To be honest, you could do this thorough medical checkup, and on the day of screening, someone can just collapse like it happened. This is nature, okay? And it happens to the best of us. Probably pure exhaustion. Of course, this has put task on the gentleman to go and do another thorough check. From what I heard also, from people that know him, and he traveled, from Kaduna and all that. That being said, if we remember about 2 years ago, the former chairman of EFCC, Abdulrashid Bawa, also almost collapsed at a public function. We've had spells of these collapses and, due to exhaustion or some underlying health issues. That being said, to my mind, this shouldn't be something we should overflog. You can go and do the best of checks, and nature, can happen to any one of us. So I think we will be rather empathetic about this and look forward to seeing how things play out. The 3 nominees have been confirmed by the Senate. We wish the nominee minister speedy recovery. We hope there is no a bigger health challenge for him. And I think he's senior and mature enough to know if this thing will affect him and affect his life. I believe he will take a better stance, or his family will force him to do so. But for us, we've come to a milestone. We want to task everybody in the cabinet and continue pushing for good governance, continue pushing for deliverance. It is at that point that the truth will come out.
All right. Segun Sopitan, you can see on the screen there his profile, 65 years old. Do you think, I'm going to flog this horse a little bit more. You think that sometimes we can say that the age of ministerial nominees, public servants, or government appointees is a bit on the high side? We need to maybe look at start appointing younger ones so that they can function effectively. And should this be swept away? Should we not look into it to say, is that an underlying incident, an underlying health challenge that may limit his ability to perform optimally in office? Should this be swept away like that?
Well, I mean, the incident about his collapse, shouldn't be swept away. He has to be checked. I think we have to ensure that it's not an indication that there's something more serious, down there. We are still dealing with the unfortunate situation in Ondo State, and we don't want a repeat of that, across board. But like we've said, look, we're human beings. Anything can happen to anybody at any time, depending on your lifestyle choices and a number of other issues. With regards to his profile and the confirmation process itself, I particularly am not too surprised. It's become very clear from the profile of the other nominees. This is 3 more, in addition to the 45 that had already been cleared. And apart from a few of them that we had looked at, majority of these nominees and these new ministers really don't have particularly inspiring track records of high-level, trailblazing performance that this country needs, with considering our current situation. The problems that the country is challenged with currently are things that we need serious competence, strong character, strong will, strong performance track record to deal with. The president can't do it alone. But what we're seeing now is a collection of people who, to be very charitable, have extremely lackluster and ordinary profiles. Majority of these guys have been career politicians. It's the only thing they can boast of. And you can see from the gentleman that we've just looked at now, secretaries to state governments, yes, and a number of other positions. You describe
them as lackluster. Let's just go over them again so that we can probably look at them. And we'll roll the profiles on the screen one more time. We see that we have a 37-year-old. We have also a 65-year-old. This is 37-year-old Dr. Jamila Bio Ibrahim, a daughter of Ibrahim Issa Bio, a former Minister of Sports under the administration of late President Umar Musa Yar'Adua, also then Goodluck Jonathan. So her father was a minister. But in 2020, let's look at what she has. She was appointed by the Kwara State Governor, Special Advisor on Sustainable Development Goals. You know, what has to do there? If there's not too much to do, I don't know.
Absolutely.
She's the National President of Progressive Young Women Forum, an initiative of APC. You're describing this as lackluster.
Absolutely. Look, for me, what we need, what Nigeria needs today is a crack team of sharp minds with serious track record of achievement. So if you look at that profile, she's young, so that's a good thing. But besides that, what else has she done as a sustainable development goals special advisor? What were her achievements? How did the SDGs move? So it would have been nice to see that in her profile. And I looked, and I really couldn't find anything. And if you can't find it, it's probably not there. You know. So what did she do in terms of moving the needle on the majority of the sustainable development goals in that Kwara State that where she served? You know, if we can see that, then we'll know that, okay, she performed in that area of her competence. She just looks like a mobilizer, a young mobilizer within a political system, and she's being rewarded for whatever role she played, you know, in the emergence of APC as the winner of these elections. And that's that. That's not what we need, you know, I'm sorry to say.
Baba Yusuf, your take on the young woman, and I mean, she's 37, and maybe some would say this is a win for the youth. She's a woman. Some would say this is also a win for the women. Your take on her profile?
Yes, thank you very much. But I'll quickly remind you that Abdurrashid Bar, the former EFCC chairman, was in his early 40s when he was appointed and when he had this issue. So I think age should be a very key factor, but it should not be the only defining factor. This administration, if we are going to give credit to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has a high number of youth and a high number of women. We just had one in the person of Jamila. To my mind, I allied myself with my fellow panelists. Probably this profile should have been more inspiring to engender more confidence in the citizens, to say, okay, we have people that are coming to add critical values, not just values, critical values. That being said, these people have been appointed in line with the provisions of the Constitution of this country. They are qualified to be ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If we look at the three categories anywhere in the world that a leader chooses a team at presidential level: technocrats, long-time loyalists, and then political appointments based on numbers you bring to win elections. So that being said, I think all three of them have qualified. What remains to be seen from my perspective is, like the saying goes, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. We will wait and see how these people would deliver. I took a note while she was doing her, you know, a screening. Something that caught my attention was what she said, quote, that she's going to look at an bottom-up approach to involving youths, you know, to take ownership of youth development and its implementation. Well, it sounds refreshing and exciting. These are just pitches. But then if the pitch is good, it's also something that will tell me that someone else is also excited to take the job. And we have seen people that come out to be, you know, big surprises for us, whether in public or private sector. Initially, they may not look so inspiring, but maybe there's a lot of things that have not been, you know, unraveled or harnessed. Where sometimes, or most times, as a former CEO myself, a current CEO myself, the leadership at the top, you know, it has the capacity to harness the potentials in people. You can bring out the best in them. I hope President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, with all the critical issues he's facing currently, will be able to inspire and also push these honorable ministers to deliver the mandate of Nigerians. That is key to us. Okay. We'll wait and say he's going to run a performance-driven Federal Executive Council. So I hope in the next 3 months or so, we will see performance evaluation. And if people are not able to deliver, I'm looking forward to see the political will of Mr. President to fire people that don't deliver. That is what I'm looking forward to.
All right, interesting. We'll still show more profiles. I will talk about them. Interested in the other young man as well. But Segun Sopitan, Baba Yusuf has talked about the fact that he said, you know, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. That's number one. He's also said these individuals meet the requirements to be appointed as ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as per the Nigerian Constitution. And thirdly, it's not unknown, to the world of politics globally for party loyalists to be given appointments. Checking.
Absolutely. I mean, he's spot on. For me, the concern is where we are as a country. We're in dire straits. If anybody is in any doubt, I think it's important to continue to highlight and emphasize that we're in a crisis. We're in an economic crisis. The country is teetering on the edge of a precipice that could spill over to become a social crisis. And that's the last thing that you want to see when you're having a new administration and a new government, in place. Therefore, one will think and expect that the president will be looking for strong, competent hands, sharp minds who have done things. I keep talking about track record because this is important. The only way you can be sure that you can do things is, to show that you've done them before, especially when you're coming on a national, scale. So it is possible to appoint competent people who are also party loyalists. It's possible to appoint technocrats who have track record. Whatever the considerations are in filling those positions, whether it's regional, religion, youth, age, gender, the important thing is that these people ought to be very strong, competent people who can deliver the type of governance that Nigeria needs as a matter of urgencies today. That, is ought to be what we see from the president. But I keep saying, and I'm going to repeat again, we haven't seen that. So it looks to me as though it's likely to be business as usual. Of course, one must also say that some of those appointees, some of the new ministers are really very, very strong hands in the right places. We must emphasize that as well. But it's not enough. I think the weight of the job and the task at hand cannot be borne by that small group of strong, competent hands and minds in his cabinet. We need to see more, but it is what it is. What we have is what we have today, and we can only hope that they do well at the end of the day.
Okay, but Baba Yusuf, are these the best hands? I mean, we look at, the appointments made by Olusegun Obasanjo in 1999 and his subsequent second term. Look at appointments, made by Yaradua and then Jonathan. Are these? I would have talked about Buhari. I don't know if I should add that, but are these the best hands of Nigerians that could have been recruited from around the world to spearhead, the nation's recovery from what has been, a tough time? Do you think that it's necessary to say, okay, we want to get the best Nigerians wherever they are in the world, come back home, serve the cabinet and help us transform the country? That's number one. Number two, it could be argued that there was a time in this current republic in Nigeria where people who didn't have a party card were given ministerial positions because of what they brought to the table. And I give examples. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was not a party person. Obiageli Ezekwesili was not a party person. Who else can I bring? Femi Adesina was not a party person. There are other names I can bring. So what do you say to these two questions I've asked you?
To be honest, if we'll sit down here and start comparing, do a comparative analysis with the President Olusegun Obasanjo and late President Umar Musa Yar'Adua, that is standard that is entirely, different, and we look forward to those standards. To be honest, because if we look at even performance, suffice it to say that the team that have been formed around the leader at the time is totally agree, but also agree that it is entirely the prerogative of the leader, to select his team and decide if he wants to work with people that cannot even read and write. But at the end of the day, we are going to task that president to deliver. That being said, whether the person is a technocrat, like I said, I still stand by those three parameters. And those three parameters has what you call the technocrats. Actually, what the category of technocrats is colorblind when it comes to party membership. Like you mentioned, Okonjo-Iweala, even in this administration, we always have them. We have currently Bosun, Tijani, who people were even coming out and unearthing, some remarks that were uncomplimentary against Mr. President. And then the person, is in government today. He was not an active member of APC, for example. I'm not a member of APC, but that is the fact. Now, that being said, we need the best hands to lead Nigeria today, no doubt. But where we are is we are running a democracy. And the dynamics of emerging as a political leader, pushes us, especially with regards to the kind of democracy we run today, for people to look at that have won elections, to look at the factors that will determine how they select the leaders. And that is why some of us, I am advocating that the model of democracy we are even practicing is not suitable for us as a country. We go and copy and paste American system and think it will work. Well, whatever it is, we can talk from now till tomorrow about these people. They've been hired. For me, as a front-facing, forward-thinking person, I will look at 4 things. First of all, Mr. President, you have a mandate, okay? And we are going to task Mr. President. We are going to continue engaging Mr. President and demanding good governance. It is so because the input of the ministers are the output of Mr. President. So if he wants to hire people that don't have capacity to deliver, then he has to answer to Nigerians. Secondly, he also came out to say he's going to run a performance-driven Federal Executive Council. I will give each and every member of this cabinet in the spirit of fairness and justice to see how they pan out, how they play out, and now be able to determine, to make my remarks based on their performance, because now we have passed that milestone of nomination and screening. So performance, if people will step up the plate, fantastic. If they don't, well, too bad. And then the third one is we have a task, a critical task, to turn around this country. I think what is important for us at this juncture, over and beyond what happened from 1999 to 2007 and during the time of Umar Musa, would to me in the Fourth Republic at the best of times, is for the citizens of this country to consistently engage this administration frontally and constructively and on issues.
All right. But Yusuf, the question would be, do we have the luxury of that time to appoint people who may not have the track record? I'm not saying they don't, but going by what Segun Sopitan said, to appoint people who may not have the track record we can use to gauge what they've done before that relates to the portfolio they'll be given, to be able to determine what to expect of them. Do we have the luxury of time to allow them fail? And they say, oh, okay, they didn't perform, let's put another person there.
Well, you see, we can, like I said, you see, for people that know me, they know that I'm an advocate of excellence. If you ask me to evaluate the entire Federal Executive Council, maybe 50% of them will not be there. But then I'm a practical person. And if we want to be mature in this conversation, is to look forward to say what are the next things to happen, because Mr. President is not going to undo what he has done. So we have a team here. And maybe the learning point going forward, is it even a learning point? It's not a learning point because Mr. President has made his decision. If I was on that chair, a lot of people, you are talking about competence. Gentlemen, we have issues of integrity. We have issues of, critical, more fundamental issues than even competence. So if we are going to go there, maybe this conversation will even have to be expanded. But it is what it is. We have people in play. And then because we don't have that lack of time, I'm going to switch my mode to engagement rather than lamentations and review of what has passed, to say, going forward personally, and I endorse all of us who in all our various spheres engage this government multidimensionally to ensure that it delivers. The citizens of this country have that power. I was in another forum yesterday to say, we Nigerians, it is our opportunity because we have demonstrated it. Nigeria is at its highest political consciousness in the history of this country. And all the political leaders can see and they are aware. So we should continue putting them on their toes. The issue of people who will fail and they will be hired, too bad, this is what we have. But I believe that we will not allow, the way we engage government will not give them the luxury of time to continue dropping the ball. For now, I will say they have dropped the ball. It will be very unfair, but they have been here for 1 month and people have just been appointed, confirmed today. I will wait and see in the next 1 month, 2 months, continue tracking the way I've been doing. I urge all of us to continue tracking, to continue speaking out, continue pointing at the issue, not just incompetence, but in terms of integrity as well.
Thank you, Abbas. Quite quickly, The confirmation was pretty quick, relatively. Segun Sopitan, this incident has sparked some concerns, raised some concerns around town. That the confirmation of the three nominees was quite quick. Do you think this is an issue that people should be talking about?
I honestly think that as a country, as a growing democracy, we have a fundamentally serious problem with our legislature. The role that the legislature is supposed to play in our system of governance is one of checks and balances. It could be complementary, but that should be secondary. Their role is supposed to be the people that are helping to ensure that the president, the executive arm of government, does good by the majority. The way that this particular 10th Assembly has gone about its business leaves very, very, very much to be desired. The speed of not just this confirmation, but even the others, was even worse than what we saw in the 9th Assembly. It's almost all a bit of a charade. There's a lack of the type of weight of seriousness that you would expect that the senators have given or accorded to this task, this very sacred task that the Constitution places on their shoulders. It appears to be extremely shallow. They just simply appear not to understand how serious this task is. So we can only hope, and I think that we need to continue to push for legislation. It will not come from the National Assembly by themselves because they are the culprits. We need to push for legislation that guides, that provides a more thorough guideline for how these things are done.
Okay, a quick final question to you, Baba Yusuf. It's been alleged that, some individuals under investigation by the EFCC, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Nigeria's anti-corruption watchdog, are part of President Tinubu's cabinet. How important is it, as far as you're concerned, for the president to ensure the integrity and ethical standards of the cabinet members? And what do you think the implications are for the credibility of his administration?
Thank you very much for that question. And I will, take your mind back to what I said a couple of minutes ago, that for me, before competency, integrity. Before competency, what are the personality types of these people? Because even if that person is competent, but we have issues around investigations. Of course, we also have to respect the fact that allegations remain allegations, and people cannot be called guilty until proven by a competent court of jurisdiction. But that being said, in other climes where moral standards are very high and etiquettes and values are highly cherished, just the fact that somebody is undergoing an investigation is not to pend any appointment until that investigation is exhausted and the person is proven to be innocent. That gives us a better moral compass, for our citizens and for our youth especially to look up to. And that is, for me, I was expecting the conversation to be more pointed at that, because you can be the most competent person. We've seen the best CEOs who have very, very much left to be desired when it comes to integrity. We have former ministers that are facing, investigations and even prosecutions all over the world. Ordinarily, if you look at their profile, they look fantastic and professional. So to be honest, it's a fundamental issue. And that I will also add to the contribution to my fellow panelists. The 10th Assembly's behavior, their disposition, shows you the kind of with seriousness with which they take a very, very critical, role they are supposed to play in this country. If you see this, and I also advocate that part of the guidelines should be basically a template to guide this conversation. What kind of questions are you going to ask, in terms of qualifying it and stratifying it, technical strategy, antecedents, and all that.
Thank you very much, Baba. So that is a conversation we need to have, because you mentioned you watched it, and I was, I'm thinking that because the senators knew the portfolio of the two young ministers who were allocated the youth ministry as minister and minister of state, probably it helped them to ask more targeted questions, just like they did for Cardoso when he went before the Senate. I don't know we'll have some further time to talk about this in the future. Thank you very much for your time, Abbas Yusuf and Segun Sopitan.